Right, Ken has introduced me. I was half listening, Ken, to what you were saying, rushing a bit now. But I run Kingsbury History Society. Did you say that?
No, I didn't say that, but I have previously.
Yeah, I run Kingsbury History Society. We were formed back in 1983. And Tom, who you've just seen, was a baby in arms. So, long time ago. We've been going ever since then. So what I'm going to do for you, if that's all right with you, I've got 2 PowerPoint presentations for you. The first one is just going to put you in the picture with the history of Kingsbury Hall. Not a great long thing, but I'm just going to sort of go through it. Some of you may be well aware of that, and I know not all of you are linked with Kingsbury, but I hope you will find it interesting anyway, because Paul is an enigma, to be perfectly honest. Still trying to work out how this building evolved, and it is very, very difficult, because it just does not fall into any typical English manor house arrangement. It's just plain weird to me. Something isn't ringing quite right with all of this, but we've yet to try and find it out. So I'm going to just take you through the history, and then I'll do another PowerPoint presentation which will take you inside. Because I don't know if Ken's told you, but unfortunately I cannot get you onto the site or into the hall. I have tried very hard, but the owner is just not insured for any visitors. It cannot be done, I've tried. His hands are tied. And having been in the hall, he let me in. Thank goodness. I went in 2 weeks ago, and haven't been in for about 2 years. I went in 2 weeks ago, and I took loads of photographs, many of which you may see. And that's the best I can do for you, so you will see what it's like inside. But it isn't clever, because there are no floorboards, and you're just teetering across planks, bits of plywood with gaping holes. If you miss your footing, you'll be down a couple of floors. So it's not clever, and the actual terrain around the outside is very uneven, and earth and shale and stones and bricks and rocks and all the rest of it. So it would be tricky, I can see that from his point of view. But anyway, that's second. Now, Tom's laid on some refreshments, which I think is ongoing. So if you feel like you want to break and get yourself tea or coffee or whatever they put out for you, that's there.
What are you describing? Okay. Go ahead and get mine. I'll get the best ride.
So that little thing that holds those little pills, you refill it or you just buy the whole thing?
Okay.
Brian, you going down?
That's that one.
Yes, there's one right there.
There's a bench there. I'm not sure if there's one around the corner or not.
You never.
Yes, we just opened it up. So when we get back over to the church, it's in this little stable block, I'll show you. So if you find me, just walk back over to the church, we just opened it up. Short of that, you're going to find a bush.
Yeah, I hear you.
Summer and the summer before, July, August, our summers tend to be a bit awful at the moment. We have nice hot springs. We had it up high 80s in April. Then we hit July and August. This is about as good as it gets sometimes. But we've had floods here. And it had oil tankers backwards and forwards on the fence.
Yeah.
It settled up. And as a result,
The last time I saw this was about 10 or 11 years ago.
It's all right, Tom. It's all you old Joe. Yeah.
So hopefully,
And so he kneeled before the king when the king came to visit and convinced the king that it was right and proper to totally demolish the castle. Which he did. And so he totally demolished it, never rebuilt. You now have the Kingsbury that's one of the little further south, and it's a suburb of London.
but coming in through here, we're in the south aisle. This is the 14th century font. It has lived in lots of places in this church, and this is where it's ended up. But at one point, it was over in the north aisle where there was a door. The door arch you can just still pick out. When we go around there, you'll be able to see it. It's under the Willoughby monument, where the coat of arms is. It's clear from the outside, but gone from the inside. And the font was traditionally over there because the north side of the churchyard was the sinister dark side. That's where the devil lived. And that is why you do not get burials there unless they're suicides or murder victims or whatever. We've got a lot of the stillborn children were over there too. You don't bury there, because that's where the devil lives. So during the baptism, the door was left open so that all the evil spirits and the poor little baby could escape out through the door. There you go. So he's up there. The window that you can see there is the oldest opening of a window left in the church. That is a 13th century lancet window, but not the glass. The glass is Victorian. But the actual shape of the window, that's 13th century. So that's the oldest window opening left in the church. We think, because of the rather glorious number of windows here, which are quite different from over there, some of those date from the 16th century, so they were put in later, that this actual aisle was used as a chapel, and possibly was an early Bracebridge Chapel. Could well have been. There's more evidence that suggests that, as you go through the arch up there, that was a chapel area. North aisles are quite often used for that purpose, and because you've got these beautiful windows, that sort of adds to the theory that that was the case. But why I've climbed up here is here. Now we're looking at a Norman, heavy round Norman column. The cushion at the top, you see, is decorated with scroll work, or ram's head work as they called it. But it's all different. And you'll notice that it looks broken. It looks as if it's been split. That bit is different from that. That's of an inferior craftsmanship. That is much better. And then round the corner, again, you've got a decided break there. You've got bits of a cushion. And what I think they've done here is that when they took out some of the pillars, they damaged the cushions a bit. And they, of course, then they had to knock holes in the wall and put this arch in before they could take out the old one. I think things got damaged. They just cobbled together the best bits that were left. That side's plain. Maybe it was never decorated in the first place. You've got a bit of toothwork there, Norman toothwork, but the other side is plain. You've got the same Norman, same pattern at the bottom, not the toothwork, but you've got the same pattern, but that's different. So that's slightly differently been dealt with in a different way over there from over here. But then on the corner, you've got something else again. It's as if either they never had the corner bit, or it got broken at some point, and they've filled it back and plastered over it, and they've just drawn the design on, but they never bothered. You see? It's easy to see here before I rub it all off, but it's been drawn on but never done. So that's really interesting and quite old there. That's why I'm up here during communion. And there we have one, and they always accompanied an altar. The altar would have been where you're standing. This must have been a solid wall. And then at some point, they knocked the wall out and opened it all up. Now that does look like a 14th century arch, so that's quite early on to have opened it up. But the altar has been moved and it's now moved back into there. So this is why we think that this area was a chapel at some point, and probably a chantry chapel. Do you know what a chantry chapel is? Okay, it was set aside with a family like the Bracebridges would have set this aside, and it would have been, there would have been a priest paid for by the family whose sole job it was to pray for their souls after they were dead, to hasten their time through purgatory and to get them to heaven faster. And the more priests you could have praying for your soul, the quicker you passed through into heaven, if you like. And you had to have the money to pay for that. And you had to trust that your priests did the job, because you were dead and you wouldn't know whether they were doing it or not. All right? So that's what a chantry. Eventually, Henry VIII, they were all scrapped and got out of the way. This is the chapel, Bracebridge Chapel, that was probably put on back end of the 13th century, early 14th century. Being the country, they're probably a little bit behind the rest of of England. Your towns would have caught on and had fashions far quicker. But this area if you go back to how it was, it must have looked really lovely. The windows were full of stained glass. That was the way in, straight from the hall. The Bracebridges would have come over here. That wall was across. This was a private area. They didn't have to mix with the plebs and the likes of us out there. They could have their own service here with their own priest. And the priest had his own altar here. There's sort of remains of like a reredos in the window, like an altar back, a carved altar back. Altar here, we know that because there's a piscina down there behind the curtain. A statue next probably for Mary, there's others around. There would have been effigies in here. This would have been very splendid and all painted. The churches would have been full of wall paintings, so they were very colourful places. They weren't plain like they are now. Churches were highly colourful, paint everywhere. And they would have come in through that door, and then the priest would have had a little acolyte watching through our squint to see at the moment that the host was raised in the main church and it was copied in here. And I still think this was also a chantry chapel until that was stopped. So the priest would have been praying for their souls. All that remains of the glass is that up there, a fragment. And I have got a peculiar picture of it. It's a bit distorted because I'm not that tall and couldn't climb anything to get that big. But I'll pass it around. But at the bottom is the Ferrers of Gruby that was in the hall. Wasn't in the church. So I'll pass that round. That one I can recognise, but some of these others, I don't know where they come from. They're not marked. So William Dugdale in the 17th century went round all churches recording all their glass and all their effigies. He doesn't mention this. That's Hastings. That's a munch. That's a sleeve. That strange thing. And the Hastings held Drakenage. So there must have been other coats of arms that we didn't know about. So I'll pass that round. And that is the Bracebridge coats of arms. Those are the 4 that are in the hall. So there's Ferrers of Gruby. One of the many Bracebridges, perhaps one of the Johns. It could have even been the John we think who may have endowed this as a thank offering for coming back from the war safely. But he's missing his legs. There he is, in his entirety. I'll pass that around. He's got a conical helmet. He's lying on his side, which is not a common position. He might have been a crusader. He's got a very elongated body. You can see his belt, or his baldric, going across quite clearly. You can see his chain, or it's often called chain mail, but actually that means the same thing. Chain and mail is the same thing. But you can see his chain hood, and you can see how it's draped across his shoulders. I'm afraid he's lost his shield completely. It's been sliced off, because all this was destroyed, possibly during the Reformation, when all iconography, all wall paintings were considered idolatrous, really, and they had to be destroyed, had to be got rid of. What we've lost in England in the name of religious fervour is heartbreaking, really. But we would have possibly then, or maybe it went with Cromwell, when Cromwell had a purge in the mid-17th century. But anyway, he's lost his legs, poor soul. They would have been crossed as well. But if you can get up his bottom and look round the cobwebs, he's got quite nicely detailed chain there. And he would have been on the floor here. So he's said to be the earliest alabaster effigy in Warwickshire. And even worse, lying behind the chairs down there, which is very hard to see, is a sandstone one, which is earlier, late 13th century, of another one. And he's almost impossible to see now because it looks as if somebody's taken a machete and sliced all the features off the top of his body. He's lying on his floor rather ignobly now. Who were St. Peter and St. Paul. That's an early dedication. That's another sign this is a very old church. So St. Peter and St. Paul, with their sword and their keys, they were in there. They would have been taken out and destroyed Reformation, or if they survived that, or the Cromwell. Which I can show you. Fortunately, the spider's gone. You can have a look at that. And this is the sedilia. This is where the priest and the deacon and the subdeacon would have sat during the service. On cushions, hopefully. We are survived. But these window openings have been put in and very much compromise it, don't they? Yeah. These are the 2 original windows, and that one was added later, and that compromises this 17th